Peace, 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 peace. Trying to make sure I get the best view here. Love this room. Been a minute. Greetings to all, peace. Peace, greetings to all. Oh man. I don't even know if I'm like gonna, let's give an honor to Source, the Most High, the Creator, for making this magic happen right now. Let me slide back, get myself position. For making all these things possible, how the universe conspired all of this. Yeah, man, it's like, where do I really begin? I've been telling myself that, oh, I didn't even know this was right here. There's a plug right here the whole time. Let's hope this works, man. Okay. So I trust it. Okay, yeah. Make sure I don't forget. Yeah. What's up, y'all? Peace. Greetings. New setting, new beginnings. Every day is a new beginning. Let's give a honor to, Source, the Creator, the Most High, for making all these things possible. If I already said that already. Yeah. Whew. I gotta make this as like authentic as possible, man. There's been a lot of shifts. There's been a lot of things happening within and outwardly. How do I start by saying, let's give honor to ancestors known and unknown, all the ones that came before us, because this message, as much as I didn't want to come and speak about this, something was weighing heavy on me that I needed to share with, which I've been sitting with myself, but needed to share with the world, the universe, those that's out there that probably, I keep telling myself, I need to go away, I need to cleanse from this. I don't even know when I'm gonna post this, but I just know the magic in what needs to be said in these very moments. And just starting out with the topic of this, in my world, I have a lot of synchronicity, I have a lot of things that come to me. So this topic, I wanted to, there's a verse in the book of, I read a lot, I study, read a lot of different things, but there's a verse, it's Luke. Those that probably don't study the Bible or look into it, I do my best to learn from all types of things, remaining a student of life. It's interesting my voice is sounding like this now. It seems like to me when I'm ready to do a video prior or something, there's something almost something that automatically comes up. I know I'm not the only one that experiences that whether it be my throat lately been changing, my voice, I feel been coming more, recognizing my as I've been progressing, speaking up, even doing my videos consistently for 3 years, and this is why I kind of have been reserving myself and learning to rest and pour into my cup before I even come and present these videos now, is because I'm realizing how important it is to keep that balance with that. And so, that being said, Luke chapter 12, verse 48, if you're not familiar with that, I'm going to give my perspective. I heard the elder say the other day, the foundation or the truth of what she see what spirituality is, has a lot to do with, or not necessarily, I'm going to quote her the best way I feel like she's mentioned it. She was spirituality, the root of it is more so your own truth, or how you comprehend that truth in a way. So that's why when I say I'm a student of life, I can look at whether it be a Bible, Quran, or a regular book or something and see the message that's in it. Yeah, I know how I feel about like getting the sun. Let's see if I can position myself. So when she said that, I was like, that's a beautiful way or perspective to look at it. That being said, I was, she was mentioning how, you can go look at something and develop your own perspective and apply it in your own life. So that, in essence, like this, what I took from her message, like spirituality, is like, again, you're your own individual. You have your own spirit. You have your own way of doing things. You have your own approach to life. So again, perspective. So that means like, this is my journal and I can share this with someone and they'll get their own perspective, whether, I'm not concerned if it's judgmental, but they will receive whatever message. And that message typically is going to come from internal due to their own experiences. So they're going to base whatever knowledge or whatever it is based off their interpretation from what they receive. And when I look at that, it's all perspective in life. When you look at everyone's life, whether it's a little baby, adult, or even adult that still has that inner child in them, no matter their age or whatever. So again, when I looked at, Luke, and it says chapter 12:48, and what I got from that text, it says, to whom, well, I get different texts, but it says, to whom much is given, much is required. Or some may say, to whom is given, much is required. And then, I start to do research. I have I'll tell you, I have an overpowered, I wouldn't even say, my mind is just overpowered, like literally. I gotta be like learning some type of research or learning something, and also balancing myself and not trying to distract myself from being in the present. But with me, I have this thing to where I have to be learning something new, or I have to be researching something, or I'm getting clarity. And this is how I approach my videos. This is how I even come to present these things to y'all, is because, again, I get this clarity on something, sit with it, and then I, boom, put it out there. Because when I put it out there, it's no longer me. It's no longer mine, is what I'm saying. It's like, it's a message, it's shared. But I was also writing earlier before I got to that message. Like, I was journaling. And when I got from that, I was doing some researching. And, it was saying like how we are entrusted with knowledge, wisdom, gifts, and talents, wealth. And then it also mentioned how we are held responsible. And then I started to add, what I interpreted from that, like, we are held responsible. So how I'm gonna break this down, y'all know how I do, I love myself to be able to share things and be able to interpret it in my own ways and to break things down like piece by piece, so y'all can maybe get some clarity or something can make, miraculously happen where you can get from this message. So again, I've been seeing the importance of like how I've been almost like when you preserve fruit or you preserve something, like preserve like myself before I like come now and present this fruit or this something that you never had before. That's how I look at myself. Like, that's how much I realize, like, when I see people say they go take and cleanse themselves or take a moment off 6 months to a year and so forth away from people, I'm like, wow. Because like I mentioned, I've done this YouTube thing through my whole journey. If you follow me or just now, consistently for 3 years, beginning from a relationship or partnership with right after a split or a breakup from the mother of my child, the mother of my kids. And right after that, again, I was just called to do some things, to speak about not just that aspect, but my story or just my life. And again, this is how some of us, like our awakenings or our self-realizations or revelations, whatever you want to call it, can come into play right after, at that moment, what I perceive to be as a heartbreak, but now I perceive that now to be as a heart awakening or something to help me look and pay attention to my abandonment wounds. So that really highlighted something within myself that I needed to focus more on building my own interdependence so that I can strive and thrive in my independence. And that's what you see now. My videos, now I look back and reflect on my life, has a lot to do with me regaining that self-esteem, empowerment, more and more as I not just make videos, but create my art, write, publish things and so forth, and just walk in my said truth. That being said, the Luke chapter 12:48 has really highlighted a lot for me, because to whom is given, much is required. So I'm gonna like literally give this to you like mathematically or metaphorically or metaphysically, whatever, like magically in my own perspective. Now, when I read a minute ago, when it says we are entrusted with knowledge, wisdom, gifts, and talents and wealth. Now, when I read that, it immediately make me ponder on, like, when you look at your life and your lineage, your present life, whether it's you have kids or not, and so forth. You are and have been entrusted with gifts, spiritual gifts, as well as what I'm going to say, move forward on, is also curses, generational curses. And those that have been following me know I speak on this a lot, being a generational curse breaker. And so what I added to that is that we are entrusted with knowledge, wisdom, gifts, and talents, wealth. We are held responsible and with these curses and or blessings. To whom is given, much is required, as a generational curse breaker. Now, the beauty of that, like I use the term generational curse breaker, has a lot to do with if I'm to whom is given, that means if I'm giving these I'm gonna use the term curses, like that has been upon my lineage, then much is required of me to face these very fears, whether it be abandonment issues, emotional traumas, things generationally that has been following not only, me, but things that came before that my incarnation or my arrival. So that's how magical this is when I say, like, to whom is given, much is required. So the beauty of being a bridge from like me speaking to the youth or talking about these things is like the youth, and then being a bridge from seeing the old way of like elders do certain things or people that came before me, and then being a bridge for the youth to realize, like, yo, to whom is given, much is required. So when I look at the culture, when I look at different creeds, when I look at people who have a lifestyle, and I sit back and I'm just learning to be more the observer, and I'm like, wow, if this person experienced so much of this pain, then they obviously have much more to gain. So when I say to whom is given, if they're giving these circumstances, if they're giving, like when I look at my life and I reflect, if I'm giving this mother, if I'm giving this father, and if I'm giving this, they're born in from their belief system on how they view life. And then that, again, is almost like marinated into my DNA. That's the word that I came up with. I wanted to say something else, but basically soaked into the roots of who I am. Then if I'm giving this narrative, if I'm giving this perspective, then much is required of me as a man, as a being, as a person, as a human being or whatever, to uphold that standard, or to be confident in that, to where I have a responsibility to not only myself, but those who come after me. So when I speak about ancestors, I mean, they were also, again, given said knowledge, wisdom, gifts, talents, wealth, or whatever. And I don't mean just materialistically, because this has happened through eons, this has happened through generations and so forth. So if I'm given this knowledge of said, whether it be universal law, some type of structure, some type of things where I am coming into this as I progress, as I evolve through life, much is required of me to share it, to benefit others. And when you see how, whether you want to use it, whether I want, use the terms benevolent or malevolent, beings or spirits and so forth, spiritual warfare, and then bring it to more so like a mundane or physical aspect, I'm able to recognize and see like, wow, they're battling with their own warfare. And there's no difference in me from you or any other youth or, adult, no matter their age. Their mother, whether it be some type of gifts, whether it be some type of knowledge and wisdom, what you're seeing and have played out is that much has been given to a lot of people, whether generationally in their lineage. What was required of them was to be able to spread things, in whether, they're going to use it in a more self-sabotaging way, self-sacrificing, or, in a selfish way or a selfless way. So when I'm able to recognize and see like why humanity or certain people haven't progressed, I was like, pow, boom, that's it. Because, if I'm able to look at it from my perspective, I was given from source or God, a mother who had her own vices. I was given that. I was given a father who had his own vices. And guess what? I stand before you or sit before you today, realizing I couldn't even escape that. And when I mean couldn't escape it, I mean like there was no other way around it without me presently and have to face it right now, currently. When I can look at the perspective of like my father creating a child and having to make his said decisions to move forward, but not realizing the impact it will have on that son, me, when you can't make up for lost times, then recognizing his own internal battle. Again, to whom is given, much is required. Okay, even though you may have a mother and father or someone that didn't work out and things didn't pan out, I respect it, I honor that, no judgment. But again, to whom is given, much is required. And when I say by that, it's like, when I look at my circumstances, me creating a child in whatever, whether woundedness or unawareness or unconsciously doing things, I still could not run from the vices that I inherited through my mother matriarchally and through my father patriarchally. Again, to whom is given, much is required. So there's much required of me if I have this knowledge and awareness that I need to learn to love me. I need to learn to love parts of me that my father didn't. If I'm given this knowledge and this wisdom, if I'm given these gifts that I hear, like a lot of us know about certain gifts that whether spiritual gifts, whether things that we're given, whether it be materialistically a lot, there is a responsibility, the discipline, that's the beauty that I see that a lot of us now as being, when I say you hear this term oversaturated with being chosen, all of us have been chosen. It's what we choose to do with that said wealth, with that said knowledge, talent, gifts, whatever it is. It's what we do with it. And how universal law plays out, what you do, what you put out, what you sow, you also reap that harvest. So when I see the polarity, when I see like what we've been giving out, whether in our lineage, what we've been giving out into the world, we reap. And so that's also bringing that topic of the imposter syndrome, which I realized that was a part of my lineage for a while. I'm like, whoa, not just said lineage, but the breaking of that generational pattern of like feeling like I don't deserve success. But what success and how is it measured? Is it measured in the material sense or the spiritual sense? And that goes back to whom is given, much is required. From my perspective, the beauty of successfully creating a video, successfully getting up, that feeling of joy. Success to me is a feeling, or not just a feeling, but a perspective on how, when I look at my past, I successfully have gotten to a place where I've accomplished this inner peace. I successfully gotten to a place where I can say I made it out of somewhere, and I've accomplished writing, books, self-publishing books, speaking and mentor to kids, or, successfully, obtain whatever it is, by having confidence in myself. I successfully overcame a generational curse or curses by being me, by being authentic. So again, going back to my perspective and my how I came into this realization is that I cannot change what my father should have done or my mother should have done. Again, they have their own vices. They have their own things spiritually that they're battling with internally. Now, with that being said, this is where you have your balance between the patriarchal and matriarchal that I speak about, the divine feminine and masculine energies within us all. And so with that, a part of what we don't know that we unconsciously do, and that can affect everybody. Now that a lot of us have been given this awareness, because a lot of us here, again, the chosen aspect is that being a generational curse breaker, I choose to face the fears or face the vices that that will progress my lineage forward, by being authentic, by being honest, by calling out the very spirits that have been attacking not only myself but my lineage, so that doesn't continue through my lineage, so that doesn't continue through my son. And see, that's the beauty of, again, to whom is given, much is required. A lot of us are here to bring forth and usher in that healing. Okay, before you can do that you must first see the pain. You must first acknowledge the unresolved traumas. Why hasn't my lineage progressed? Why haven't I progressed? Why does it seem like it feel like I'm stuck when I'm not? But what in me that I refuse to see? What in my mother and father or said people that reflects back and mirror back to me a version that I do not want to accept, that I realize that it's a continuous or repetitive cycle that keeps us from progressing as said men and women. And that's the thing, as a man, I must recognize that what has been keeping me from progressing as a man. For one easy generational thing that I can tell you is the discipline with whether you want to use the term semen retention or even recognizing my sexual traumas, to realize like, okay, I'm here to break that pattern. So that's why, my previous videos, how I talked about, if I'm given this knowledge, if I'm given this awareness that comes up on my path and it says like, okay, here's the universe, like, here go these terms and conditions for you this lifetime, bucko. Okay, around this time, around this, you're gonna come into this awareness. You're gonna come into this thing, and you're responsible for this. And that's what some may say the free will comes in. You're responsible for this. And then how deep it goes is like, do you want your said son or daughter to continue this? To my mother's, we know that we don't ever want our children to live out what we've experienced, especially our pain. So when I'm saying this, when you look at our mothers and fathers, and when you really look at that, and when you really see, when you look at your family, take a step back and you really see things. And this doesn't have to do with what you have materialistically, whether you were born into wealth. That's why I tell people, some people are born into wealth. But deep down, they're surrounded by people who are inauthentic. They're surrounded by people who don't walk in integrity. So again, that can be their vices. That can be their spiritual warfare that they're facing and that they need to heal. That's why these kids that come in, they come in a higher frequency or higher vibration, being that just like us, just like me, are the most sensitive kids or the most vibrant kids or the most expressive and a lot of us were shunned, or a lot of us were silent. And then, you know, a lot of us, such as myself, came to this awareness, like, had my daughter not came, a lot of things I wouldn't have noticed when it came to my expression, which is the feminine aspect of who I am, which is my emotion. I would have never known how to really recognize that this happened to me through our exchange, whether unhealthy or healthy. Like, I'm not going to be ashamed and feel guilty and make it seem like things have been perfect with my circumstances. No, our kids come to literally remind us of the behavior patterns or the belief systems. As a generational curse breaker, again, to whom is given, much is required. It's required of me to go within myself, to acknowledge not just my shortcomings, but to acknowledge the things, so I don't have to carry the guilt and shame around, you know, what I've experienced, and to reconnect with that essence or the innocence or that inner child who developed this behavior pattern, and realized, like, along down the line, as I became, not just in my becoming of a man and a father, that's a different version of me as being a man than a whole other version that's asked of me to be a father. Again, to whom is given, much is required. I was given this vessel, this body, this genetic makeup. So this lifetime, you know, this is how I look at perceived things, so that I could become a father. Now, there are many that came before me, again, that I've talked about, that were womanizers, that were abusers. Again, I'm able to recognize that in my lineage, and even lived out some of the same behavior patterns where I was unconsciously not realizing how much it affected me, how much it would affect everyone, how much it has affected the community, how much it can affect humanity. So I'm able now to realize, like, that ripple effect, where as a generational curse breaker, these things were given to our lineage, to my lineage. And as a generational curse breaker, it was given, but also stops with me. Because what was required of me is to call out that spirit of abuse, sexual abuse, succubus, incubus, you know, jinn spirits. Things were called for me to acknowledge. And with that, that has been a progress of facing. When especially when I had to go through those, like, realizing that I had sexual traumas, realizing that I had unresolved traumas, being from my mother and father meeting, is no different than for a lot of us that have met with their partner, whether in whatever circumstances it is. A lot of men and a lot of women have a lot of deep sexual traumas, or they never told stories and so forth. So when they engage and then they create a baby or whatever and so forth, to whom is given, you were meant, some of you came together, you were given this child. You were given this insight as a healer, as a person that come into this awareness more spiritually. You were given this. So with that, much is required of you, much is, you know, to be responsible, not just for you, but for them. Because the beauty of that is, like, it's not about, it has never been about self-sacrificing yourself for that child. A lot of people are caught up in that. I got caught up in that. That's why you see a lot of resentment built between our mothers and fathers, where you had a lot of mothers and you see a lot of single mothers due to certain circumstances where, again, they're not knowing that they have unresolved traumas, or they're not knowing that this has been a pattern. They sit back and look and be like, oh, wow, like, my mama is the same way. I was able to sit back and realize, to see exactly the behavior pattern, the pattern of my dad, to realize, like, oh, this specifically happened so I can be. So now it's required of me as a man. I'm responsible. That reflects the patriarchal, also the matriarchal, because I come from a woman, but that reflects the current patriarchal structure. I have to face, like, oh, like, okay, God, like, source of creation. Oh, okay, so I have to face this. I have to face the fears of abandonment so that I realize I no longer abandon myself, my inner child, the little boy in me, so that that pattern doesn't happen again with my son. Oh, man. Oh, okay then. So again, to whom much is given, much is required. You were given that said, however you look at success, you were giving those generational curses, man. Just to be a fucking generational curse breaker, chain breaker. You were giving everything just for you to change that narrative. Whoever you are, know that. Because a lot of us felt like our mothers and fathers, like they didn't unconsciously, we subconsciously picked up on their nonverbal cues of what they've experienced. And I even know people who literally, through their woundedness, through their inability to sustain a stable connection or relationship because of their own internal imbalances, because of their own internal warfare, you know, I express to people all the time, like, there's a little boy and girl within them that never received that love, that never received that nurturing, that never received that acceptance or sense of belonging. So their patterns that they're reenacting is a self-destructive pattern that they're unconscious with. And that's why you see a lot of dysfunctional families and so forth, and mothers lashing out, fathers lashing out through their what they perceive as protectiveness, but it's overprotectiveness because they're coming from a place of overgiving because they've never known what it was to give to themselves. And through that process, they've been living out years, 20, 30 years, or however they have their kids, of a behavior pattern of self-sacrificing their joy and happiness because their kids have been the center of their world rather than them being the center of their world. Whew. Let me give you an analogy. It's almost like you see the sun shining on me. I'm gonna give you an analogy of like how beautiful life is. In my world, in my universe, I am the sun. Like literally, visualize with me, close your eyes, however you want to do it. I am the sun in my galaxy, in my universe, right? And I was telling someone, I was like, the planets or whatever you can say, they're orbiting me, right? So I see people in my life orbiting me, my universe. Now the people like that's near me, like whether it be a son, a daughter, you know, your partner, actually visualize them like they have their own world too, their own perspective on life. Okay, but know that you're the center of your life. Now for women, you can change this perspective and it can still be your world and your galaxy. I just see myself as a sun, like literally the sun that you see. But women, you can say you're the moon because that's how I perceive, like I said, my son is orbiting me as another sun, and then my daughter is orbiting me as a moon. Then my partner is just like, you know, I can use that concept or perspective like she's her own universe. And so when you actually connect, when you connecting with people, it's almost like when you're meeting someone, you're interacting and energetically exchanging like worlds or, you know, information, and you're exchanging like different perspectives on life, belief systems, and so forth. So that's just why I want to share with y'all. I want to give y'all that because once you start to realize like you're the center of your world, you'll be like, wow, because we're taught the opposite. Again, to whom is given, much is required. I'd rather share that knowledge and wisdom or whatever with, you know, kids and so forth to realize like you can't even come tell a child that they're not the center of their universe unless it's literally been dug into them or like planted into them, which we have experienced, which I've had experience that has been implanted in us since we were, you know, young and came out of our mother's womb. And then also being dependent on if our mothers are wounded and what they went through, we inherit that because she never knew that she was the center of her world. Her father never told her that. Her mother never instilled in that. Because a lot of these karmic and, you know, a lot of these partnerships and relationships, a lot of things energetically were just to bring us back to this, but for us to remember that we are our first and last love. We are our first and last everything, Alpha and Omega of everything outside of, well, not outside of, but that connection to source or the creator, however you want to call it, God. How can anyone tell me I'm not the center of my world? I'm the center of my love. That's a beautiful thing to tell little boys and little girls that. So when you have another person outside of you that clashes with you, you realize that they're clashing inside. They're going on with something inside. They're trying to process or navigate something within them that, you know, they're still learning, especially little boys and girls. So when I see adults that are just as myself, still trying to learn how to, we're just more experienced in navigating our emotions. That's it. I don't see that we're more intelligent, more like advanced than a child. No. When I look at them, I'm looking at the fact that, like, I sit back and observe and I'm like, wow, they don't know rules. They don't know what religion is. They don't know none of that stuff. They're literally liberated. They're literally like innocent, pure. They come with a heart of gold, pure. And when you look at how a lot of us have been, like, when you use the term toxic or just like almost like poison from all these things that we've learned, you realize how much, when you look at a lot of adults, that's exactly what they are. That's how I'm able to, when I look at the little boy and girl in them, and I've had to get to this place within myself to recognize, like, my own things that keep me from really being myself. What is keeping me from being and showing up for me? What is keeping me from allowing that little boy in me to really express itself? Because it's been so programmed that we're not even allowed as adults to express our anger, our emotion, have an outburst, and so forth, especially men that are darker and women that are darker. And again, everybody's included outside of just the skin thing, but again, in a said country, this has been a big thing. But with that, just like I see, when I'm sitting back and observing a lot of these adults, you know, in these settings, I'm like, wow, like a lot of them like are literally little kids. It's like, visualize with me, like if you see, you know, whether you're out in public, library or whatever setting, we're so caught up. We have been so disconnected from our inner child, or so disconnected from who we are. We literally prioritize our child's happiness and joy over our fucking own. Just because, and we will literally make this make sense, like, well, I don't want them to go through what I went through, so I'm gonna basically I'm telling myself, I'm gonna deprive myself of my own happiness so my child can experience it before I can. Did you hear that? We're basically depriving ourselves, we're starving ourselves of happiness and joy, which is an inside thing before, for a career, for chasing a bag, for status, acceptance, security. Make it make sense. You'll never, I'm honestly telling you, you'll never be at peace. You'll always walk through life unsatisfied and bitter. And that's what we see with a lot of our elders. To whom is given, much is required. They had an opportunity. Listen to what I'm saying. Everyone has an opportunity to obtain what they felt was taken from them. Let me tell you, sister, brother, anybody, nothing was taken from you. Only what was perceived as being taken was something that your mother and father or whomever was your caregiver did not realize, that what they felt was taken could never be removed from who they are in their essence. Even though it may seem like things were taken, there's always a way to obtain it, to return to it, through healing, through a progress of, you know, that removing those unresolved traumas, or recognizing that unresolved trauma. Everyone can be reborn anew, be rebirthed anew through that said experience. What has happened is that you have, and this is from my own experience, I'm gonna use my own experience. I literally grew up around or been in an experience where I knew that some women would literally, I had a mother, or just at that time, not to degrade anybody or anything, where would get up, and I spoke about this, that would literally get up so angry at I know it was what she was harboring, and then project it out into her kids or into someone else. And it never really made sense to me until I was given, again, to whom much is given, much is required. I was given this insight, it's not her. It's not her fault. Because a little girl inside of my mother that I couldn't see then because I was a little boy. But then again, I could see it, I could recognize it, but she couldn't see it. So her innocence that she felt was taken from her childhood, because this is what a lot of you are going through. I don't care what your age is. You have actually took it on this narrative in your mind. You have programmed yourself inwardly in that your mother and father never giving you something, so you felt like it was taken. And then this has happened progressively through your life, where you feel like certain relations where you've given so much of yourself, or overly given, that it almost seemed like people have been taking and robbing you of your happiness, which you have been given away freely with no boundaries, because you never was shown boundaries. You never was given boundaries. And again, these things are given to us to bring this awareness. I'm here to give you this awareness. I was given this. I even hear my father talk, and he got a lot of knowledge and wisdom, but it's what people choose to do with it. And it's what they choose to stay in, that comfortability, what's familiar. And so when I see my mother get up angry, and I'd be like, why are you harboring so much? And I start to connect the dots, and I realized how vital it was for me to see how what she felt she didn't get from her father, she almost tried to smother me in an unconscious way. But subconsciously, I picked up on it to where I knew she was unhappy with what she was doing. A lot of people that are abusers or have went through abuse, they're not happy with being abusers. I don't care who they are. People that are escaping through drugs or, escaping through whatever vices, they're not deep down to the core. There's no happiness in that. There's more of a temporary, like we say fix, but temporary satisfaction almost. But it will never, there's nothing that will fill that void. And that's what I start to recognize. She didn't want to abuse me emotionally. She didn't want to abandon me. It's just when you see people fighting with their vices, it's the little girl in them, the little boy in them, that deep down in their soul and essence, that literally fighting out, trying to grasp outside of them what they perceive as happiness through their drugs, through their escapism, through their relationship, through their abuse, through whatever it is, because they perceive that through some type of mental abuse, through some type of, things that they inherited, that they believe that will bring them some type of joy and happiness. And this has been far from the truth. This has been far from reality and actuality. To them, that little boy and girl that was given that fantasy of what relationships, whether unhealthy patterns or that fantasy that a lot of us has been given, that this is what marriage looks like. This is what a family looks like. This is what success looks like. Fantasy, 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 but never really given actuality until we actually realize that we're the fucking problem. It's been us all along. And then once you start to recognize that you are accountable, you are responsible, because to whom is given, much is required. So then that's when that accountability comes in of your actions. And again, hold on, if my mother was giving me and my father was giving me, then it was required of them to be responsible of said me. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. So then that's when everything comes full circle. And you recognize like, wow, if I'm given this, then I'm given this to do things differently. So that means that I don't need to associate, or I realize I have to change my patterns, because it's habits and these old patterns that are connected to these generational traumas. Some ain't adding up, but then when it does add up, it equals to this. You're telling me that if I keep doing this and this and this, it's gonna equal this, mom, dad, people, humanity, society. Isn't that insanity to keep expecting to do the same thing generationally, expecting a different result? It don't take a rocket. It ain't even a rocket. Even a child can see that behaviors that have been displayed in humanity or so forth, which I had to recognize, which again, I have been right there when I have displayed patterns that I was not even aware of. That's the unconsciousness. That's where the subconscious fears and things come up when we don't even realize that we're literally living out patterns, whether we're unconscious of it or not, whether we're conscious of it or not. But again, no matter how far and where we feel we're going, we're literally living out things. And the beauty of awareness is like a lot of us won't even come to this awareness, but a lot of us will. But for those of you that are like literally coming into that awareness and awakening, this is what the shift is about. How are you going to make change if you don't be it? It ain't adding up. The change ain't adding up. So, yeah, man, it's a beautiful and miraculous thing, because again, when I'm seeing these little, when I'm able to see now the grace that I had to give myself, because I haven't been perfect in this shit, and I'm not going to perceive it to be. That's like saying, like, for one, it's almost like, this was something I was getting into. It's like, if I grew up in a demographic where there isn't much talked about when it comes to having kids and having a trust, having a will, or having certain things that were never discussed to me, financial literacy, the importance of emotional, integration, or navigating my emotions, as a man, or realizing that the more I grew up around women who were emotionally unstable or imbalanced, how much that led me to so much of being impulsive, so much of being, having unrestrained or uncontrollable emotions into my adulthood, and not recognizing it. Then I'm realizing, like, oh, my inner child, this is my inner child that's angry. This is these repressed emotions and memories that I experienced at 9 and 12 and 13, where I was bullied or where I was abused, and my body been keeping the score. My body kept the score, and I recognized at moments where I unconsciously grabbed my daughter, in an aggressive way, and not realizing it's aggressive to her, but to me it's just like, no, baby, I'm trying to be as gentle as possible. But when you're not shown these things, when you're not realizing the approach, because you were never approached that way. That was one of my most challenging things. It's still learning my approach. When you can realize that your programming, when you now are over 30 and your programming has been in conflict-driven environments, and we don't realize there are millions, hundreds of millions of people who have grew up in environments, and literally their neurotransmitters, or their, whether you want to call it PTSD, or their body have kept the score of memories since they were young, and a smell, a sense, a taste, or a loudness or noise can trigger something. I've lived it and still living through it. Where certain things I didn't realize, like, why couldn't my mother do this? Why couldn't my father do this? And again, they only could do with what they were given. To whom is given, much is required. A lot of our mothers, a lot of our fathers don't know responsibility. They don't know what it is to be self-aware of their emotions. They don't know what it is to love themselves. So yes, I've been shown things, pain, and experienced things that most children shouldn't have, and so have you. And then we question the creator or source, like, why am I given this path? Why am I given this journey? To whom is given, much is required, daughter, son. I've given you this lesson. I gotta feel this because I feel this. I've given you this pain, and it may sound crazy to some. I've given you this pain. I've given you these lessons this lifetime because I knew that these were going to be the tools that you were going to master and sharpen so that you can be the one to pass this into your lineage, this knowledge, this wisdom, this spiritual wealth. I've given you this pain and lesson, this awareness, so you can be able to face those ancestral traumas. So you can choose peace and be at peace this lifetime, so that your sons and daughters and the ones that come after you can experience said peace inside, no matter how much the world is fighting amongst themselves. And you come into that awareness that that's their own internal battle and it has nothing to do with you. Yes. And it ain't always what I'm saying, like God or sources. God gives, its toughest soldiers. I'm not getting into the soldier stuff because, no. I look at it like my perspective on that, like we're all giving something, and what is required of us is far more bigger than what our mother and father, what the world has told us who to be. I always tell people, who are you before the world told you to be? Learn who you are and what the Most High perceives you to be before anyone has told you. And that's what a lot of us are returning to. What is required of me as a man, or what I'm creating, is not the same what my father or grandfather or so people, like, it's not. What's required of me is a completely different blueprint. Now, they were a part of the blueprint, like generationally, but what's required of me this time will not be the same actions. When you're a generational curse breaker, the same actions aren't required of you. That doesn't mean you're not going to have shortcomings. That's not going to mean you're not going to go through things. But the lesson in all of it is that what is required of you is to do things different, to take a different route, to go this way when everybody's telling you, millions, billions of people can tell you, you should go this way through religion. You should go this way through finances. You should do this. You should date this person. All these other things. But what is required of you is not what the world has told you who to be. What is required of you is not to conform. What is required of you is to pioneer your own way, to trailblaze your own way. Yes, we were given, a narrative of who we all supposed to be as darker people. Even people that are different shades, you're given a narrative. But who's to say that narrative is true when you have the opportunity to rewrite it? You're literally rewriting, you're living your destiny. And that's what I had to recognize. To whom is given, much is required. If I'm giving these generational curses, okay, it's required of me, from my perspective. How could I transmute that and alchemize that into something positive. And I don't mean just good or bad. I mean, how could I use that, again, negative aspect, again, feminine, negative, and create something positive? How could I create that, alchemize that? And from my experience, the books, the things I went through, and still unlearning and relearning. To whom is given, yeah, you're giving these generational curses to unlearn them motherfuckers, to reteach them, you unlearn to relearn. A lot of us had the mother and father of ourselves. So it's required of us to do things different as leaders. When we were followers of people who just, their belief system just led us down a path of self-destruction. Now it's required of us to do things differently. And when you're required to do things differently, the same people ain't gonna be a part of your said sitcom or your story or your narrative. When you are required to do something, you are required to be the main character. At a point in your life when you were smaller, yeah, you were giving a mother who at a time who were responsible for being your caretaker, until you got to that awareness consciously, till you get to that place where you're required to be responsible for your emotions, for your well-being, mentally, spiritually, and so forth. That's the beauty of how things were in natural order. Where when you look at nature, when the mother bird pushes the bird out, or certain things where the kids, like, it literally, nature reflects everything feminine and masculine, where things have to, at a time where you want to use a term, naturally being dependent or codependent, to where you have to depend on self. Now, that doesn't leave you like that interdependence where you are connected spiritually to your said mother and father. But that independence is solely up to you. That's where destiny comes in. And so, again, we were given these things just to generationally break them. We were given this insight, this lifetime. A lot of us were given this knowledge, wisdom, gifts, and so forth, just to see, like, are you going to have the courage, the self-esteem, even when no money is there, when no one is there, so forth? Are you going to have the courage? Because this is what the Aquarian age is about, humanitarian, the oneness. You're given this. A lot of you, what the power that used to be gate kept a lot of these things. People were gatekeepers of said things, whether spiritually, whether medicine women, whether people who came here and went through things karmically just to come on their path, to become aware of who they are and start to recognize, like, I'm not of this world. I'm not from this world. I don't care to be a part of it. But why I'm here is my mission more important than any selfish attachments that I have to this said world or people, or other people's selfish attachments of me, no matter how it may seem selfish of them for me to walk in this path. And everyone's not ready for that. And that's why, again, everyone's not the same. Again, there are people who are elected, selected, whatever you want to call it, that are given said things just to see how they are going to use it for the betterment of all, which you see have not been happening. And this is where balance has been restored, to where you're going to see people that come into things where they are given said things for not only you to prosper, your lineage, and moving forward as humanity. There are people who have whatever they possess or whatever they feel they have been given those things. And they have gatekept it selfishly, self-righteously. They have been given knowledge, wisdom, wealth, whatever you name it, spiritual gifts they have been given. And it has been required of them No one is exempt. That it has been required of them to share said wealth, spiritual gifts, and so forth. Because this is the natural order of things. And the reason why things have been suffering, have not been in the natural order of things in harmony and peaceful, is because there are things here naturally that are supposed to be liberated. We're all supposed to, liberation is being at peace with being myself authentically, not being controlled and manipulated, manipulating our kids, manipulating, said whatever it is. That was never what it was intended to be. So again, there were people, no matter who they are, I don't care. I don't care the color, creed, species, spirit. We don't give a flying fuck. When source come in here, and this is a message, again, they were, to whom is given, much is required. And people choose their destiny or their fate. So when it comes to people realizing that they can pull the wool over the Most High eyes, there's nothing that goes unseen. Because energetically, whether whatever you put out returns. So again, no one is exempt from universal law. No one is exempt from cause and effect. No one is exempt from, whether, karma or dharma. No one is exempt from that. So the beauty of all this is, again, to whom is given, much is required. And when I see things play out, when I hear people talking about, oh, they're doing this and do this to someone and so forth, spiritual community, a lot of us here are assigned for certain things to expose or to unveil or to, reveal things just for it to come back to its natural order. There's no fear in that, because love is liberating. And once people grasp that love is liberating, you don't hold on to this shit here. You can't even hold on to your body. You can't even stay here as long as you think you want to, energetically speaking. So love is liberating, living through the heart. And that's what divinely protects us all. When you live through authenticity, you'll be able to see what's inauthentic. You'll be able to see what doesn't resonate with you. Why do you think kids are so pure and they can pick up on stuff? They know what's not for them. Kids know what's not with people and so forth are not for them. And a lot of us, again, to whom is given, much is required. A lot of us are given these kids to be guardians, and just like they're guardians of us. But people don't have that awareness and realize, like, they were given to us. They were never given to you for control and manipulation. They were given to you to mirror your fucking insecurities, whatever you're going through, so you can return to the innocence that they already come into, the purity. That's what this is about. A lot of you are given said wealth, material things, a lot of things, and deep down, whatever's blocking you, because you obtained through your childhood woundings or through your childhood experience, you obtain your said wealth or career or so forth. And a lot of you, I'm calling it out, this is what it is. A lot of you harbor those very things because you don't want to give, because you felt like through your selfishness that you don't want to give things because your heart is blocked, or you don't want others to prosper in a way that you have. And it was never intended that way. A lot of people, you're going to see it unveil. I don't care about Source don't care about no billionaires. They were given. To whom is given, much is required. And there's a saying goes, all money ain't good money. But at the same time, it's energetically speaking, where to whom is given, much is required. I've told someone, I said, yeah, your mama may have done this, or this person may have done this with this and so forth. But when it touches you, or when it comes to you, you are required as a responsibility to share or do things in a different energetic aspect. What's your intentions behind that money? What's your intentions behind even when you connect with someone? whether you unconsciously know that. What is your intentions? Because they will always be revealed. It will always be revealed. And the beauty of that is like, people think they get away with stuff, and that's why kids are so magical and they come karmically for people. Like, that's what they say. You think you got away with something, it'll show up in your kid, it'll show up in someone else, or it can show up in anything, energetically speaking. That's how beautiful things are. You don't escape nothing. Even I had to accept that. I'm like, man, oh my gosh. I put this woman through this, or I put this person through this, man, it shows up through something. But the beauty is that, can you recognize a lesson? So you was given that experience. Now it's required of you now to balance it out, to clear that karma, to face it, so you can experience a dharmic path or something more beautiful. So you can acknowledge. That's what becoming at peace is when you realize, like, oh, I acknowledge it. Oh, I'm at peace with this. So again, you know who you are, but that's what's going to be unveiled. And that's what a lot of people fear. It's like, they fear a lot of things that you were given. No one is higher than the Most High. No, nothing is higher than Source. A lot of people were giving said things, and what was required of them, they did not follow through. So in that, you can bring curses upon yourself, because a generational curse breaker will do the opposite. Instead of keeping their lineage in a curse or almost in a karmic energetic loop. So there you have it. To whom is given, much is required. Peace and blessings. Shalom.